8 isometric exercises you will regret ignoring in 10 years. Before we get started, please leave a comment with your name and the city you are watching from. We would love to know. Exercise number 1. Isometric tricep dip. The isometric contraction is one in which the muscle produces force without changing its length, and the isometric tricep dip is one of the simplest and, at the same time, most underestimated examples of this category. By holding this position for an extended period of time, you force the muscle to sustain load at a specific angle, something that traditional dynamic movement does not train in the same way. Regular practitioners notice improvements in elbow and shoulder stability precisely because this type of contraction strengthens the tendons and ligaments around the joint, not just the muscle belly itself. This means less discomfort when carrying weight in daily life and greater protection against small injuries that accumulate over the years. This exercise intensely works the triceps brachii with secondary involvement of the anterior deltoid and the lower portion of the chest. The shoulder joint is complex and requires balance between its anterior, lateral, and posterior portions. Strengthening the stabilizers around it helps protect against wear and tear, especially the posterior portion, which is neglected in traditional pushing workouts. To perform it correctly, sit on the edge of a firm bench or chair with your hands placed beside your hips and your fingers pointing forward. Slide your hips off the edge and lower your body by bending your elbows to approximately 90 degrees, keeping your chest open and your shoulders away from your ears. Hold this position for the designated time, breathing in a controlled manner. An extra tip is to keep your elbows pointing backward, close to your body, rather than letting them flare out to the sides. This reduces stress on the shoulder joint and concentrates the work where it should be, in the triceps. A common mistake is letting the shoulders rise toward the ears during the hold, which overloads the neck and reduces the effectiveness of the movement. Another mistake is lowering the hips too far, going past 90 degrees of elbow flexion, and increasing the risk of joint impingement. Start by holding for 20 to 30 seconds for 3 to 4 sets, gradually progressing to 40 seconds as strength increases. If you feel sharp pain in the shoulder and not just the natural discomfort of muscle burn, stop the exercise immediately. Contraindications include people with shoulder impingement, untreated rotator cuff injuries, or significant wrist and elbow problems. In these cases, it is worth seeking professional guidance before including this movement in your routine. Exercise number 2, hollow body hold. What many people do not know is that the hollow body hold, inherited from artistic gymnastics, is considered by many coaches to be the foundation of all advanced core work. Gymnasts spend months perfecting this static position before learning more complex movements. Core training goes far beyond aesthetics. It is essential for spinal stabilization and for injury prevention in practically any daily activity. It is worth noting that there is an important difference between abdominal hypertrophy, which is muscle growth, and the visible definition of it, the famous six-pack, which depends mainly on body fat percentage, controlled primarily through nutrition. The hollow body hold intensely recruits the rectus abdominis and the transverse abdominis, while also requiring isometric involvement of the hip flexors and lower back stabilizers, which work to maintain a neutral spine throughout the entire hold. To perform it, lie on your back with your arms extended overhead and your legs straight. Press your lower back into the floor, engaging your core, then slightly lift your shoulders and legs off the ground, forming a gentle curve with your body. Hold this position without letting your lower back arch or lift away from the floor. An extra tip is to imagine pulling your navel towards your spine throughout the entire movement. This helps keep the lower back protected and prevents it from arching when fatigue begins to set in. A common mistake is letting the lower back lift off the floor, which removes tension from the core and transfers the load to the spine. Another frequent mistake is holding your breath, which unnecessarily increases intra-abdominal pressure. Start by holding for 15 to 25 seconds for 3 sets, gradually progressing to 30 to 45 seconds, always prioritizing correct technique over total time. Contraindications include untreated abdominal hernias, acute lower back pain, and the immediate postpartum period, when the abdominal muscles are still recovering from the natural separation that occurs during pregnancy. Exercise number 3, isometric push-up hold at the bottom. To perform it correctly, it is important to understand that we are talking about the traditional push-up, held at the lowest point of the movement, and not any other variation with a similar name. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to strengthen exactly the point where most people stall during a conventional push-up. This exercise intensely works the chest, the anterior deltoid, and the triceps, while also demanding strong core stabilization. The chest does not only act in the horizontal adduction of the arms, it also participates in internal rotation and shoulder flexion, functions that are particularly evident in this position. A frequently overlooked detail is scapular retraction, meaning slightly squeezing the shoulder blades together during the movement. This simple adjustment protects the shoulder joint and better distributes the load among the muscles involved. To perform it, position yourself in a plank with your hands slightly wider than shoulder width apart. Lower your body until you are a few inches from the floor, keeping your elbows close to your torso at approximately a 45-degree angle, and hold this position without touching the ground. An extra tip is to gently press the floor with your hands as if you were trying to pull it toward you. This extra activation significantly increases muscle recruitment in the chest and triceps during the hold. A common mistake is letting the elbows flare out to the sides, close to 90 degrees, which unnecessarily overloads the shoulder joint. Another mistake is letting the hips drop or rise too high, losing the alignment between shoulders, hips, and heels. Start by holding for 10 to 20 seconds for 3 to 4 sets, progressing to 30 seconds as control and strength increase. If your technique begins to break down before the time is up, it is better to end the set than to continue with compensations. Contraindications include active shoulder or wrist injuries, carpal tunnel syndrome in an acute phase, and the third trimester of pregnancy, when the plank position becomes uncomfortable and is not recommended. Exercise number 4. Isometric glute bridge. Few people know this, but the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and yet it is one of the most neglected in training, especially among men who tend to focus their leg workouts almost entirely on the quadriceps and calves. This harms not only aesthetics, but also strength and performance in explosive movements. The glutes play a central role in pelvic stabilization and are one of the main contributors to the prevention of lower back pain. When they are weak, other structures, such as the lower back itself, end up compensating for the workload, which increases the risk of overuse over time. It is also worth noting that developing the largest muscle in the body increases caloric consumption even after the workout is over, a phenomenon known as excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. This exercise primarily works the gluteus maximus, with significant involvement of the hamstrings and the spinal erectors as stabilizers. The hamstrings are often overlooked compared to the quadriceps, but their hip extension function is essential here, and they also help prevent imbalances that increase the risk of knee injuries. To perform it, lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Lift your hips until you form a straight line between your shoulders and your knees, squeezing your glutes firmly at the top of the movement, and hold this position. An extra tip is to think about pressing your heels into the floor during the lift. This small shift in focus tends to significantly increase glute recruitment compared to the hamstrings. A common mistake is hyperextending the lower back at the top of the movement, seeking extra range at the expense of the spine, rather than letting the glutes do the work. Another mistake is positioning your feet too far from your body, which transfers part of the effort to the hamstrings. Start by holding for 25 to 40 seconds for 3 to 4 sets, progressing up to 60 seconds. Contraindications include acute lower back pain, specific hip conditions, and the immediate period following surgeries in the pelvic region. Exercise number 5. Dead hang. Keep in mind that grip strength is not only useful for hanging from a bar. According to several population-based studies, it is one of the most consistent indicators of overall strength and long-term health, associated with longevity outcomes in research involving adults of different ages. The dead hang, or passive bar hang, is a simple exercise that many people ignore because it seems too easy to be effective. It intensely works the forearm flexors and the hand muscles responsible for grip, while also isometrically recruiting the latissimus dorsi and the scapular stabilizers. A frequently overlooked benefit is the decompression of the spine and shoulder joint provided by the pull of body weight, something especially relevant for those who spend long hours sitting during the day. To perform it, grip a fixed bar with your hands shoulder width apart, allowing your arms to fully extend. Gently engage your shoulders downward, away from your ears, and relax the rest of your body, holding the position for the designated time. An extra tip is to start with the active version of the exercise, with your shoulders slightly engaged and pulled away from your ears before progressing to the fully passive hang, which places greater demands on the joint stabilizers. A common mistake is shrugging the shoulders toward the ears throughout the hold, which can cause discomfort in the neck area. Another mistake is using a grip with the thumb on the same side as the other fingers, which compromises the safety of the movement. Start by holding for 15 to 30 seconds for 3 to 4 sets. gradually progressing as grip endurance increases, always prioritizing quality over total time. Contraindications include shoulder instability, untreated rotator cuff injuries, and significant wrist or finger problems, which can be aggravated by supporting body weight. Exercise number 6, wall sit. A recent meta-analysis combining several studies on isometric exercises identified the wall sit as one of the most effective protocols for reducing resting blood pressure, ahead of most traditional aerobic exercises in that specific regard. This exercise, so common in physical education classes, tends to be treated as a simple endurance challenge, but it goes far beyond that. It intensely works the quadriceps isometrically, while also recruiting the glutes and core stabilizing muscles to keep the torso aligned against the wall. To perform it, lean your back against a smooth wall with your feet shoulder-width apart and slightly in front of your body. Slide your back down the wall until your knees form approximately a 90-degree angle, as if you were sitting in an invisible chair, and hold this position. An extra tip is to keep your knees aligned with your ankles without letting them cave inward. This not only protects the joint, but also improves load distribution among the muscles involved. A common mistake is slipping into a position that is too high or too low, which reduces the effectiveness of the exercise. Another mistake is resting your hands on your thighs, which removes part of the load necessary for the real muscular challenge. Start by holding for 30 to 45 seconds for 3 sets, progressing to 60 seconds as muscular endurance improves. Contraindications include significant patellofemoral pain, recent meniscus or ligament injuries, and any uncontrolled cardiovascular condition, since prolonged isometric holds can temporarily raise blood pressure during the exercise. Exercise number 7, deep rest squat. It is worth clarifying that we are talking about the deep resting squat, also popularly known as the rest squat, and not the wall sit mentioned earlier. These are two completely different movements, both in objective and in execution. In many cultures around the world, this position is used naturally as a form of rest, in place of chairs. What many people do not know is that the ability to remain comfortably in this position is a good indicator of ankle and hip mobility, joints that tend to lose range of motion over the years due to a sedentary lifestyle and the habit of sitting for long periods. Unlike most exercises in this video, the focus here is not on maximum strength, but rather on joint mobility and proprioception of the hips, knees, and ankles. Many people also report greater digestive comfort when adopting this position for a few minutes, although this benefit still deserves more controlled research. To perform it, position your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart, with your toes turned slightly outward. Bend your knees and lower your hips as far as possible, keeping your heels flat on the floor the entire time. Your arms can hang loosely between your legs or be held out in front of your body for balance. An extra tip is to use a support, such as a door frame or a sturdy piece of furniture, holding on lightly with your hands during the first few days until the necessary mobility develops. A common mistake is letting your heels rise off the floor, which is a clear sign of limited ankle mobility. In this case, it is worth placing a small support, such as a book, under your heels to ease the adaptation. Another mistake is rounding your back excessively in an attempt to go deeper at the expense of spinal posture. Since this is a mobility-focused exercise, the time recommendation is different. Accumulate 30 seconds to 2 minutes in the position, and you can divide this time into short periods throughout the day rather than concentrating everything into a single session. Contraindications include advanced knee osteoarthritis, acute meniscal injuries, and severe mobility limitations that have not yet been evaluated by a healthcare professional. Exercise number 8, Isometric Superman. When you include the Isometric Superman in your routine, you are working a region that receives very little attention, the posterior chain of the spine. The lower back plays a stabilizing role in virtually every movement the body performs, and pain in this area tends to arise more from weakness in this musculature than from excessive training, contrary to what many people believe. This exercise intensely works the spinal erectors with significant involvement of the glutes and, to a lesser degree, the rear deltoids. It is precisely this type of sustained isometric contraction, applied in conjunction with training of other areas of the body, that helps keep the spine protected throughout an entire workout routine. To perform it, lie face down with your arms extended in front of you and your legs straight behind you. Simultaneously lift your arms, chest, and legs off the floor, looking slightly downward to keep your neck in a neutral position, and hold this position for the designated time. An extra tip is to think about lengthening your body as much as possible, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, rather than simply trying to get as high as possible. This shift in focus protects the lower back while still ensuring adequate muscle activation. A common mistake is throwing your head back and looking upward during the hold, which unnecessarily overloads the neck. Another mistake is lifting the body too high, chasing height instead of control, which can create uncomfortable lower back compression. Start by holding for 10 to 20 seconds for 3 sets, gradually progressing to 30 seconds, always respecting your spine's limits. Contraindications include acute lower back injuries, diagnosed spondylolisthesis, and symptomatic herniated discs, conditions in which any spinal extension should be previously evaluated by a healthcare professional. We saved the best for last. Do not skip the bonus section. Bonus exercise: isometric calf raise hold. The calf is known as the body's second heart, and that is no exaggeration. It helps pump blood back up to the heart against the force of gravity, functioning as an auxiliary pump located in the legs. Neglecting it goes beyond aesthetics. Directly affects circulation, especially in people who spend long periods sitting or standing. I have observed that the calves also play a fundamental role in balance, and they are one of the first structures to lose strength and coordination with advancing age, which increases the risk of falls in older individuals. Strengthening them today is an investment in your stability years from now. This exercise works the triceps surae, formed by the gastrocnemius and the soleus, the latter being a muscle predominantly composed of slow-twitch fibers, which respond better to longer sets than to short, explosive efforts. To perform it, place the front of your feet on the edge of a step, leaving your heels suspended in the air to allow for a greater range of motion. Rise as high as possible onto the balls of your feet and hold this position at the top without letting your heels drop. An extra tip is to vary the position of your feet between sets, alternating between parallel, turned inward, and turned outward. Each variation emphasizes a different portion of the calf, ensuring more complete development of the muscle group. A common mistake is performing the movement on a flat surface without a step, which drastically reduces the range of motion and consequently the results. Another mistake is swinging the body to gain momentum instead of holding the position in a controlled and stable manner. Start by holding for 20 to 30 seconds for 3 to 4 sets, progressing to 45 seconds as calf endurance increases. Contraindications include Achilles tendonitis in an acute phase, recent stress fractures in the area, and any ankle instability that has not yet been evaluated by a healthcare professional.